Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. Thrilled to have back with us a friend of The Contrarian, Ezra Levin, who is the co-founder of Indivisible. Welcome, Ezra.
Hey Jen, great to be here.
It is so nice to see you, and you have news. What's the next big event?
The next event, big event, is coming up on June 14th. If folks are familiar with June 14th, that is Flag Day. It is a Saturday, great day for protests. It also happens to be Donald Trump's 79th birthday. And one thing that we've been hearing, we originally it was just kind of vaguely being reported, not confirmed, but just last week it was confirmed. Donald Trump is planning to spend tens of millions of taxpayer dollars for a military parade in Washington, D.C. for his birthday. That is what he is planning to do. Look, I don't know about you. I don't know about the listeners. I don't know about the viewers here. That doesn't sound American to me. In America, we don't throw military parades for our dear leader. That's not what we do. So instead of protesting in DC, I do not want counter protesting in DC. I don't want to give this authoritarian any excuse to crack down on peaceful protests. So instead of that, we're having No King's Day. No King's Day on June 14th, everywhere but downtown Washington, D.C. I want it in rural communities. I want it in urban communities. I want it in red states and blue states and purple states, everywhere but Washington, D.C., just to demonstrate how he doesn't have the power. The power does not exist within the White House. It's everywhere else. There were 1,100 protests for May Day last week. There were 1,300 protests on Hands Off April 5th. I think this is going to be even bigger. We have got an enormous coalition that's already behind this. We've got folks at Public Citizen, 5051, American Federation of Teachers, Reverend Barber's group, National Action Network, Al Sharpton's group. There is a large coalition that is building and growing, but it's not being led by some national organization. This is being led by folks on the ground. If you go to nokings.org right now, you'll see about 100 events because we pre-registered some, but this is going to grow every single day by normal everyday people who say, "Oh wow, there's not an event near me. I guess I've got to start one." So I'm looking forward to seeing this thing take off. I think it's going to be enormous. I think it's going to be powerful. It's going to be a demonstrate of what mass, peaceful, popular protest looks like in a real constitutional republic.
And this seems different in that sense than 2017, where you saw a few of these very huge events, which were great. But here, the breadth of this and the number of events seems to be extraordinary. What does that tell you about the state of the opposition, the mindset of the American people, that in so many areas people are organized or self-organizing to protest this president?
You know, Erica Chenoweth, one of these scholars of authoritarianism and of people-based action, did some analysis looking at 2017 protests versus 2025, and has found that actually in 2025 it's been more widespread. 2017, it was protest was the new brunch. That's what people said. People seem to be out all the time, but even the data says 2025 it's even more widespread. And I think something actually somewhat scary is happening, and then in response to that, something beautiful is happening. And the scary thing that's happening is that the institutions that should be upholding liberal democracy, whether this is businesses or law firms, or in some cases universities like Columbia, they should be stepping up. But in January, February, March, what we saw were these institutions were not stepping up. They were cooperating, they were collaborating, they were falling in response to the bullying from the White House. And that's scary. That's scary because what it says is the authoritarian playbook is working. He's not just saying, I've got control of Congress. He's not just saying, I've got control of the Republican Party. He's saying, I got control of you, your university, your law firm, your business. You got to bow to me. That's scary. But in response, we see this beautiful thing happening, which is normal, everyday people are looking around and saying, well, I don't agree to this. I don't want a king. I guess I got to show up. I guess I got to organize. And we've just seen a flood, a wave of new people organizing under Indivisible. But you also see that for 5051, organic protest movement formed on Reddit and suddenly has tons of people coming out. You see that on the May Day protest, as I mentioned last week, with tons of people coming out on a Thursday to demonstrate that they're standing with immigrants, that they're standing with unionized workers. So, it gives me hope, Jen. I got to say, it gives me hope. We are living through scary, dangerous times, and we're also living through a time of a lot of courage. A lot of normal, everyday people are saying, well, I guess I got to step up and do this, so I'm going to do it. And look, that's what keeps me going right now.
I see two results of this. One is that issues that Trump thought he owned, like immigration,
Yeah.
have turned into an albatross around his neck. You have people holding up those due process
Yep.
signs at rallies. And the other is it does seem to be having an impact on what the politicians are doing. And then you see into the mix many of these judges standing up to Trump, and not just in court decisions, but yesterday, almost 160 lawyers writing a letter to the attorney general saying, you cannot intimidate the judiciary. What's the interplay of all of these different aspects of the resistance movement?
Look, politicians are politicians. So you look at Republicans, you look at Democrats, you look at independents. If you are an elected official, in your brain every day when you wake up, you're thinking, how do I get votes next time I need votes? And that's not a knock on politicians. That's good. That means we live in a constitutional republic where the people have the power and they lend it out to other folks who are running for office. That's healthy. You don't want politicians thinking, well, I don't care. I don't need those votes. That's a sign that you don't live in a healthy democracy. But because of that, mass protest movements in rural areas, in red areas, and yes, in blue and purple areas, those have an impact because those politicians see that and they think, oh, wait, I might not have as sturdy ground under my feet as I thought. I got to pay attention to this. Maybe I got to demonstrate I'm not part of the problem. And to your point, the issues that Trump was elected on, people wanted lower prices for bread and eggs. People were unhappy with the status quo and thought, well, maybe we'll shake this up. Trump talked a lot about immigration, how he was going to bring law and order back. But the policies that he's actually pushed forward and the way that he's pushed forward those policies have alienated his own coalition. So what we are doing now, I want to be very clear. I think sometimes, and you don't do this, but you see this some places in media that the current moment is simplified as grassroots lefties and then establishment or conservatives. And that is not what is happening. What we are building here is a broad-based cross-ideological movement where we would welcome in Trump voters who wanted lower prices of eggs, but instead are getting fascism and are disappointed. We're welcoming in the folks on the right who want constitutional law. The only people who aren't welcome in this coalition are folks who want a king. And there is a percent of the population who is part of a cult of personality led by Donald Trump, but it's a small minority in this country. And as long as this is a constitutional republic, you can't have a small minority forcing through a deeply unpopular agenda and maintain a hold on power. It's just not tenable. You can do that for a short period, but eventually your chickens are coming home to roost.
And this is the philosophy that allows a resistance to succeed. When you saw what happened in Poland, groups that might not agree on a whole lot of different issues, if they have solidarity on the democracy issues, then they can succeed. And likewise, you're seeing some judges now, Judge Rodriguez in Texas ruling on
Yeah.
the Alien Enemies Act. You had a judge in North Carolina ruling that an attempt by MAGA Republicans to steal a
Yeah.
North Carolina Supreme Court. These are Trump appointed judges. They too see that there's something greater than simply Donald Trump. There's the rule of law at issue. Do you see the beginnings of some nervousness among Republicans? You had this appointee, Ed Martin, a horrendous appointee for the
Yeah.
U.S. Attorney of the District of Columbia. You have a budget that they promised to cut 800 billion of Medicaid that is caught up in Nowheresville in Congress. Are Republicans beginning to get a little nervous because what they're pushing is super unpopular?
This is exactly what's happening, Jen. This is exactly the theory of change. Trump was writing highest in November and December and January when what he was promising to do was theoretical and abstract and could fit on a bumper sticker. As soon as it became real and as soon as the backlash came and was organized, a lot of folks started saying, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. That's stage one, is normal everyday backlash. Stage two is competent politicians looking at and saying, oh, wait, if I support this, I might be in danger. I might lose my election or we might lose our majority. Let's put the brakes on this. Let's try to demonstrate to the public that isn't happy that we understand their concerns. This is the plan, is to mobilize again peaceful, broad-based protest everywhere to give those politicians a heads up. Hey, maybe you should back off. The key here that we're doing is shifting people's time horizons, but institutions and political leaders' time horizons. In January and February, the time horizon was right now, in this moment. Donald Trump is president. He has control of the Republican Party. The Congress is with him. He's going to push through his agenda. He is threatening me or he's threatening my institution. I've got to protect myself right now. And that's how we saw a lot of institutions behaving. That's why you saw Columbia cave. That's why you saw Paul Weiss cave. That's why you see Washington Post and ABC News. That's why you see that kind of behavior. But with this broad-based, peaceful public protest, mass protest out there, what you're doing is sending a signal to those institutions. Oh, wait, 2027 is coming. There's probably going to be a Democratic House. They're going to launch investigations. 2029 is coming. Trump isn't going to be president anymore. There's going to be somebody else. I'm still going to be a law firm. I'm still going to be a university. I'm still going to be a business. And I'm going to have to contend with my actions today. That's great. That's what we want those leaders and those institutions thinking, because I don't want them being cowards, protecting themselves and caving to an authoritarian today. I want them forward thinking. I want them thinking about that future era. And mass public protest brings that future era closer to them. It says, oh, wow,
Absolutely.
the country is going in a different direction, and I got to be there because I don't want to be left behind.
Absolutely. And of course, it also lights a fire under our Democratic friends.
Absolutely.
It forces them to be a bit more confrontational. And as those Trump approval numbers come down, I think it does embolden the politicians to listen even more closely to the electorate, because what are they really scared about? This super unpopular president is going to challenge them? What about the hundreds of thousands, the millions of voters out there who are now irate with them? Which do you really care about more? Isn't that kind of the cost benefit analysis we want each one of these guys to go through?
It's exactly right. Look, I hate to say, but that the dominant opinion within the Democratic Party circa November, December, January was, well, Trump won. The Republicans control Congress. We've got to demonstrate how reasonable we are by working with Donald Trump and working with the
Common
Republicans.
ground, common ground.
That was the chant of the Democratic establishment. And it was very frustrating for those of us who were organizing in November, December, January, because we were seeing wave energy. We had more, I've said this to you before, more indivisible groups in November form than any month since 2017. And that number grew every single month and continues to grow. And we were trying to tell Democratic electeds at that time, there is a lot of anti-Trump, anti-Musk energy on the ground. You should be listening to this. You should be calibrating your political decisions based on this. They didn't do that in November, December, and January. You know when they started doing that? The hundreds of town hall recesses in February, the hundreds of empty chair town halls in March focused on Republicans who were too cowardly to show up, the April 5th protest, which was the largest since the first Trump term. That's what started shifting Democrats in elected office to say, oh, wait, there actually is energy to oppose Trump. I do get applause when I go and fight back against. I want more applause, so I'm going to do more of that. And look, again, that is healthy. That is how the system should work. They make one set of decisions based on the lay of the land that they read in November, December, January. The weather changes. People are out there and they say, oh, I've got to go there. The people are there. I'm their leader. I must follow them. That's great.
Exactly.
That's how it should work. And I don't think we're there yet. Look, a week ago, we saw 16 Democrats in the Senate vote for yet another Trump nominee, David Perdue, a election denier to be the ambassador to China. I don't like that, and I think they should get negative pushback for that. But we are a whole lot better off today than we were 3 months ago. When you look at the
Yes.
Democratic Party, you see individual Democrats, people like Maxwell Frost and Jamie Raskin and Chris Murphy and Jasmine Crockett. There's a long list and a growing list of elected Democrats who see the political opportunity here, and they're going for it. We need to encourage that with carrots and sticks. Celebrate, praise those who are leading, and provide negative pushback and call them to their greater purpose if they're not doing it.
Absolutely. And last thing I want to reinforce for our viewers, our listeners, is there are elections this year. There
Indeed.
are upcoming important elections, New Jersey, Virginia, just to name two. All those state legislators, the governor, the statewide races. How important are those, just as the races in 2017 were in those states, in continuing this momentum into the midterm year?
Look, they're important on two levels. One, they're important for the people who are constituents of those elected
Yes.
officials. We don't need a continuation of Republican leadership in Virginia. We should replace the Republican governor and get a Democratic governor. We should try to take the state legislature because then Virginia can be a bulwark against Donald Trump going
Absolutely.
forward. But it's important for a psychological reason too. We need wins right now, Jen. We need wins. And we need to demonstrate that Donald Trump is not all powerful. I think the Wisconsin Supreme Court race a couple months ago, time has no meaning now, but the
Yes.
Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, where Elon Musk pumped $20 million plus to try to buy a Supreme Court seat, he lost. We beat him up and down the state. That is important for demonstrating to the broader public that this guy is not all powerful, that he is not actually a king, that we do live in a democratic republic where your vote still matters. Winning in Virginia, winning in New Jersey is important for New Jersey and Virginia, but it's important for the country writ large to show that, yeah, this era is ending. There is backlash coming. So if you are an individual citizen, you should know that is coming. That should give you confidence to stand up, to push back, to not cooperate. And if you're a leader in a political institution or if you're a leader in a non-political institution, you're going to see the writing on the wall and you're going to stop doing everything that Donald Trump says just because he sends you a strongly worded letter.
Absolutely. And we are influencing universities, which are now banding
Yeah,
together,
that's
led by
right.
Harvard. We're seeing law firms now fight back. So there is progress being made. So for No King's Day, people want to organize or they want to find an existing organization near them, an existing event. What do they do?
Yeah, go to nokings.org. What you will see is a map, and you can put in your zip code. You can find an event near you. It's early days. We launched it yesterday officially, so there aren't going to be events everywhere, but they're going to keep on populating every day. And if you put in your zip code and you say, "Oh, there's not one near me," good news. You get to organize a pro-democracy march or protest in your community. You get to get your friends and family members and colleagues to show up in defense of our constitutional republic, and you get to have some fun while doing it. It's going to be great, but we need you. Nobody else is riding in on a horse in shining armor to save us. This is being led by normal, everyday people on the ground like you. You who are watching me speak right now, this is being led by people like you. That's how we got to 1,100 protests on May Day. That's how we got to 1,300. I think we're going to be even bigger on June 14th on Flag Day because you know what is just about universal in this country? We don't want kings. We were founded as a country against the idea of kingly rule. We can build a big coalition behind this, and it's going to be built by folks who are watching this program and others.
Absolutely. And I can attest personally, these are fun. They're
They
joyous.
are.
It's not an angry crowd. It's not a resentful crowd. These people are having the time of their lives
They
because
are.
it is fun. They've become scenes of joy, of togetherness, of community. And you will not be sorry if you go to one of these or if you organize one of them. And once you start doing it, you're not going to be able to stop because
There's
it
a
really is a addictive quality to companionship and community.
there's a phrase I learned relatively recently that's been applied to church goings or to concerts, collective effervescence. It's
Yes.
this feeling that you get when you're among a lot of people who are thinking and acting and chanting and experiencing the same thing together physically in person. Look, for 200,000 years, our species has been gathering in groups physically together. I know in the modern era with Twitter and with TikTok and with online the experience is you can feel isolated. I'm talking to you in my bedroom right now. This is how we often experience life, but getting out in the world physically, geographically with folks of your community, that's a human experience that's hard to replicate in any other way. And to do it in service of democracy and human rights and rule of law, what could be better, Jen? It's a great time.
Exactly. Exactly. So for your endorphin high, go to nokings.org. Thank you, Ezra. It's always fun talking to you, and I am sure we will have you back soon. Take care.
Can't wait, Jen. Thank you.